This is Twit.
You just love dressing your case. You were just thrilled to be fondling the tube sock for the Inwin Alice.
It's a little
case.
slinky. Hey, and case enthusiasts, you don't always think of yourselves as being a fashionista necessarily, but you can really let yourself go with all the different fabric swatches and all of the different colors and textures that your heart desires. But what we're actually talking about, if you're listening, this makes absolutely no sense to you. The Alice is a computer case from Inwin, very well-known maker of generally pretty high-end cases. In fact, they have some of the highest-end concept cases every year. But this is as pretty much as basic as it gets. Imagine the construction beginning with like a milk crate, one of those heavy-duty plastic crates that you can stack on top of each other and make into furniture. And that, add a couple of metal plates to the inside of it that have mounting holes for a motherboard, storage, power supply. And you have this case. And it's actually, if you're watching the video, it's right behind me. It's a big plastic crate, basically, with metal panels to hold all your computer components. So on one side, you've got your main component chamber for graphics and motherboard, cooling, everything, storage on a big plate. And around the back, you have another section for the power supply, which attaches to another metal bracket. So it's extremely durable. It's a lot more rigid than you'd think. I think mainly because of the extra rigidity from those two metal panels on the inside. But we're talking about something that is essentially a unique and functional open test system. Like, it's just an open case. But the unique thing about it is that it's a fabric covered computer case. They have all these different colors of fabric.
Just like your speakers.
Yeah, exactly, and it's the same kind of thing. It's that sort of semi-transparent material you'd find on older speakers, and it stretches over the case, and you just pull it up from the bottom over the case. The bottom of each of these covers is a mesh, like a screen door, and it's supposed to do a little bit in the way of kind of filtering out dust, bunnies, and things, but it's not a real fine mesh. It does a good job of allowing cool air to come up, because this is a rotated layout case. So where your rear panel normally obviously faces the back, that's facing the top. So motherboard orientation is literally turned 90 degrees. So, so all the cool air has to come in from the bottom. It rises up. So natural convection is on your side with this case, comes out the top. The lid of the case just snaps on, and it leaves about a 1.5 inch gap above all the components, and that's where all the hot air can escape. So obviously, if this was vented more on the top, the thermals will be better. Thermals aren't terrible in this anyway. I personally, after going through the build and then trying it with the cover, without the cover, I like it a lot better without the cover, but I do a lot of open test bench stuff anyway. Sure. This is like a protective cage for your system. I don't know if it ended up in the final cut or not, but last week doing this show, I knocked over half of my stuff here in front of me, reaching for this thing to talk about it. But if the test system that I knocked onto the floor had been inside of this, it would have been totally fine. As it is, I actually damaged the motherboard, which I discovered later. There was a gash in the side of the PCB. But, this is like a roll cage for your test system. So I'm like, and then think about this. Pricing, if you're looking at mid-tower cases, which this technically is, it's priced at $55. That's just $55 flat. It's been that way for the last 2 months since it came out. And for that price, finding a high-quality test bench is not easy. And finding one that's even remotely close to holding every one of your components like this. Back when I was looking for my first open test bench, I ended up with a Dymastech that I spent about $160 on, I think. And it was on the larger side, but it allowed me to actually do what this does, which is put your ATX power supply within it, have space for all of your storage, and everything else is on top where you can easily access it. And it was really rigid. It was made out of fairly thick metal, a little on the heavy side. This is only 8 pounds, and it's $55, and it makes a fantastic test system. If you want to put the fabric cover over it, that's fine. It did affect thermals, of course. The main reason I think that it affected thermals, though, is because I didn't add any case fans. And this has space for up to 320 millimeter fans on the bottom and another 120 up top. And if in any of the pictures that Inwin has of their builds, it shows it with 3 fans on the bottom, 1 fan up top, which makes perfect sense. If you are actually going to use this as a cover, you need that additional airflow once that cloth is in place, because it's going to trap some warm air in there. There's just some clever things, like if you're watching the video, just little things like the way it routes the power supply cable actually comes out through one of the feet, and just they did some thoughtful things with the design. At first, this may look completely insane. You're like, what on earth? This is a cloth cover on a computer case. Why would you run the computer with the dust cover over it like this? But it actually works. It won't burn up. Like my GPU got 8 degrees hotter inside this thin polyester cover. The CPU actually warmed up a lot more. The CPU was a Core i7 9700K, and it went up 15 degrees. So having all that extra warm air inside the case did not help the CPU cooler at all. The GPU was pushing air a little bit more effectively out of the case than the CPU was. But again, that was without case fans. Add your own case fans, improve airflow. That's one thing I really should have done for this, and I can add is quick retest with some case fans on the bottom, pushing cool air up over the system. But it's pretty fascinating. I feel like it's a dual purpose thing, sort of a ultra strong utilitarian test bench you could also conceivably use as a 24/7 case if you have adequate cooling inside. And it's $55.
Nothing wrong with adequate cooling.
Yeah,
that's a good price for a fairly functional case.